Maira's book, The Promise of Beauty and Why It Matters. And I'd like to invite Geeta from HarperCollins to come in and introduce our lovely guests. Thank you.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to all of you. We're here to release The Promise of Beauty and Why It Matters, a series of dialogues on beauty by Shakti Maira. An examination of the idea of beauty is probably one of the most important inquiries we could make today. In a world that often feels under siege, it is an important question. What is beautiful? Is it mere prettiness? Can the unjust be beautiful? What is the price we pay to gain beauty? What happens when we ignore it? When Shakti Maira turned his mind to this question, he knew that there were no answers to be found alone. It must be a communal inquiry, a multidisciplinary inquiry. He turned to the leading intellectuals in fields across the spectrum: scientists, philosophers, artists, neurologists, meditation masters, social activists, and asked them to join his search. What is beauty and why does it matter? Ruth Padel, the highly regarded poet, had this to say to him: where you see beauty depends on how you look. It is a thought that echoed deeply with Shakti, and you will hear more about it soon. We're deeply fortunate to have Ruth with us today, and I welcome her warmly to India, to Jaipur, and to the stage. We will hear more from both Ruth Padel and Shakti in a bit, but first I invite Namita Gokhale, author, publisher, and founder and co-director of the Jaipur Literature Festival, to say a few words. Namita.
Dear friends, thank you for being here for the book launch of this wonderful book, which The Promise of Beauty and Why It Matters. It balances and resonates with what I had spoken about in my opening address, where I spoke about the concept of Satyam Shivam Sundaram and the aesthetics of beauty, which are also the aesthetics of truth. So I remember about 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, sitting with Shakti over a very nice drink and a very long conversation about how he was planning this book. So I'm really delighted and gratified that a very beautifully designed, well-written book on an important subject will be launched today. And my deepest congratulations and thank you, Ruth, for being here. I think let's get on with it and unwrap the book. Thank you.
Thank you, Namita. Thank you, Namita. Shakti, would you like to say a few words just before we begin?
I'm sorry Namita has to leave, but thank you very much, Namita, for that very warm introduction. I also regret to announce that Geeta Chandran, who was going to be here, isn't able to make it because she hurt her back and hasn't been able to travel to Jaipur. But Ruth and I are here and we'll do our best.
We will.
Let me talk a little bit about the book and then I'll ask Ruth to speak and then we'll do a little bit of a reading from the book so that you get a flavor, because it's a book that has a somewhat unusual format. It is a collection of conversations, and so we thought we might try and give you a feel for the kind of conversations that exist in the book. So, first of all, thank you all very much for coming here. I know you have many choices, and you chose to come to a place where we're going to talk about beauty. People often say to me, beauty? Yes, I mean, that's very important, but it's all really in the eyes of the beholder. You're writing a whole book about beauty? Very tricky subject. For many people, the only truth they believe about beauty is that it's an entirely subjective perception, with different things being beautiful for different people. End of the story. Beauty has been a conflicted terrain. The high priests of the arts and arguably progressive postmodern socio-political thinkers have cast it aside. As an artist, I am troubled by this and by the exaggeratedly conceptual art that is being made these days. The repeated observation of many people that our lives are becoming uglier and less beautiful played a part in the genesis of this book. I wondered why more people are not demanding greater beauty from the people who manage our societies, the politicians and administrators, our artists, as well as from our neighbors and ourselves. Now, a huge problem is that beauty has become almost entirely superficially located, quite literally on the skin, and is confused with prettiness. The domain of beauty is now owned largely by salons and cosmetic products. And it hasn't helped that the word beautiful itself has become a general and amorphous adjective used interchangeably with good, pleasing, terrific, wonderful, great, and excellent. It has even been used to describe bombs and wars. People have been known to say things like, it was a beauty of a bomb, or it was a beautiful war, and I wondered about this. So what is beauty? Why does it exist? Is it only how things look? Is it merely prettiness? Is it only subjective? Is it merely a perception, or is there some objective basis, some logic to beauty? Historically, beauty has been held in high esteem. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty, Keats wrote. And Indic and Greek philosophers, as Namita pointed out, have spoken about Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, truth, beauty, and goodness. So why has it become so sensate and materially located? Why has science given so little thought to beauty? Does beauty serve a function? What happens in the brain when beauty is experienced? Is there such a thing as inner beauty? What is the relationship between beauty and well-being? What is the relationship between beauty and the arts? Do artists create beauty, or are the arts a path to beauty? These are some of the questions I discussed with 18 eminent and interesting thinkers. One of whom is here with me. I felt conversations would be the best way to tackle a subject like beauty. I spoke with scientists, 3 of them, Fritjof Capra, who wrote The Tao of Physics, Pushpa Mitra Bhargav, an eminent biologist in India who's very concerned about the intersection between art, science, and beauty, Rupert Sheldrake, a biologist who lives in London, and it's a very unusual mind. I spoke to some philosophers, Dr. Karan Singh, Roger Scruton, who's written a book on beauty, and Satish Kumar, the Gandhian philosopher and editor in England. I spoke to a variety of artists, the painter Anjali Ela Menon, Ruth, another poet, Ashok Vajpayee, who writes in Hindi, Geeta Chandran, the dancer, the Bharatanatyam dancer, Muzaffar Ali, the filmmaker and also a painter, Gautam Bhatia, the architect, writer, and also a sculptor, and two neuroscientists. One was Samir Zeki, who is the person who kind of started the field of neuroaesthetics, the person who coined that word, and Clifford Saran, an American neuroscientist who's done a lot of work with the Mind Life group with the Dalai Lama. I also have a Tibetan meditation master, Thai Situ Rinpoche, an ecologist, Vandana Shiva, who many of you might know, a cultural anthropologist from Japan, Kibo Oiwa, who sees a strong relationship between slowness and beauty. He started a thing called the Sloth Club. And a politician at 9 Downing Street. We went to 9 Downing Street for this interview with a politician, Sir Oliver Letwin. And through this book, I think you'll get the pleasure of meeting these very interesting people and seeing how they look at this complex and yet, I think, very important subject. Now, what emerges is that there is much more to beauty than prettiness and this idea that beauty only exists in the eyes of beholders. It emerges that there is an intriguing and profound unity between origin, function, and structure in beauty. And I'll read you a little bit to give you a feel for what emerges from the end of the book. The experience of beauty is quite universal, and generally it feels good. There's pleasure, attraction, and wellness. Sometimes, though, beauty can trigger negative feelings such as grasping, envy, and even jealousy. This has cast a shadow on beauty in some philosophies, such as Buddhism. However, on examination, we find these are secondary responses resulting from other mental factors and conditions and are not intrinsic to beauty itself. The triggers to the experience of beauty vary widely, and this is no surprise because experience is always contextual and individual. Though the stimulus to the beauty experience is usually external, something we see or make contact with, in certain conditions, beauty can be experienced entirely within ourselves without any external stimulus. This can occur in meditation, for example. Now, all over the world, humans find a lot of beauty in nature, despite the fact that sights, sounds, smells, and tastes vary greatly. This could be because there is something about the way nature works at a systemic level. We do find certain recurring patterns and mathematical relationships, such as the Fibonacci series, the golden section, fractals. These life-forming patterns and relationships appear beautiful to most people at an instinctual level, probably because they are intrinsic to us. We are made of these very patterns. Since they are part of our very nature, we tend to resonate with them. And architects and artists, and poets too, Ruth has used this, she tells me in her poetry, use these mathematical relationships in some ways to make forms that evoke beauty. Now, relationships are the basis of life and occur at all levels, in microsystems such as cells, in human systems, and in the macrosystems of climate and environment. In nature, relational wellness abounds systemically. It is probably fundamental to how natural systems create, regulate, and flourish, and relational qualities of balance, harmony, proportion, and rhythm create states of being which are experienced as beauty. Beauty is, therefore, both an experience and a state of being. Whether in the external world or in our inner world, beauty occurs in well-being. When we experience extraordinary beauty, it may be because of the presence of relational excellence. It is, therefore, not surprising that these qualities have been attributed to beauty and considered its basis in many cultures. You're wanting to jump in, Ruth.
Well, I'm just thinking that actually it's so interesting that you thought of this book in terms of dialogues, because it seems to me that you use that word relational, if I can pick up on that. And it seems to me that there is a kind of sense that the truth of something is in the relational, is in relationship. And you have created this book, which is many relationships, 18 people you've talked to. And it's as if there is beauty in the idea of dialogue itself.
Yes.
I think that is one of the sort of central things.
Yes. And that is something that Ajita, who was up here, the editor, was very keen that we somehow use this form of conversations. That we get a lot of books that are books, that's one person's sort of version, but here you see an interaction of different minds together.
Should we read our
Yes.
a bit of our conversation? It is such a pleasure for me to see this book. Shakti approached me, I think, 3 years ago, and we had a wonderful conversation about beauty in a, as I remember, a very, very beautiful house belonging to a friend of yours. And I've almost forgotten what I said there. I hope I still believe it. Where should we start?
So we'll start here.
Okay.
So I asked Ruth, we'd had a conversation, a bit of a conversation about Tracy Emin, who is a British artist of some, I won't get into that whole discussion,
Yeah.
but I mentioned that, and at some point I asked Ruth, just the other day, someone told me that the mushroom cloud after the Hiroshima nuclear explosion was beautiful. What about the relationship between beauty and goodness?
Okay, well, there's an opera by Monteverdi, L'Incoronazione di Poppea. And the plot is that Nero, the Roman emperor, gets rid of various women in order to get married to another woman. So he kills them. And at the end, there is this absolutely beautiful duet, exquisite 16th century, early 17th century duet, sung by the emperor and his bride. And they have waded through blood to reach this point. And the duet is wicked because he's murdered all these people, but he's made the most exquisite music out of it. There is no goodness in the plot. There is no goodness in the people who are supposed to be singing the plot, but it is celebrating love. If it's a concert piece sung on its own, you would say it's gorgeous. But in the context of the opera, it is celebrating absolute selfishness.
And I found it difficult to think of beauty that exists on its own without any context. For me, the Hiroshima cloud, Ruth, cannot be separated from the terrible disaster that occurred in Hiroshima. Or if I heard the Monteverdi duet, and I knew the context that you just described, there would probably be a ghastly feeling around it. I find it difficult to take something out of context and find it beautiful.
Well, but you're an artist. And if you take a piece of art out of its context and put it in a blank space in a museum, do you see it differently? And this word abstract comes from the Latin abtraho, meaning to drag away. So you are taking something away from something. It's movement to the abstract. It's taking it out of context. So that's why I try not to use abstract words in a poem, and why I think that you were talking about the relational as beautiful. Maybe we should skip a bit. Because
Yes.
Should we go down to...
Maybe here, if you put an abstract
Okay.
word, I like that.
Yes.
Yes.
If you put an abstract word like beauty in a poem, it can mean so many different things. But if you say the red speckle on the butterfly wing hit the sunlight, you make the relationship palpable. And as far as poetry is concerned, you make a relation with a specific thing, and the sense of beauty comes along with it.
Vasundhara, I'm delighted that you're here. Thank you for coming. And you might be interested in this because we are talking about the role of public administrators and politicians and their responsibility for helping us make the world more beautiful. So thank you for coming. And this is something that I know that you are sensitive to.
Okay.
So we were just talking about a conversation that Ruth and I had, and she's just brought in the notion of changing context for things to be beautiful, and is taking the example of a piece of modern art that I find quite disgusting. And I say to Ruth, yes, isn't it curious that when you teach poetry, you ask students to stay away from abstractions, but in the visual arts, the abstract and the conceptual have become hugely desirable. Maybe this is why a lot of contemporary art is dissatisfying for so many people. The butterfly catching the beam of light has gone missing in the visual arts. And this is what Ruth says.
Oh, wait, I was...
You're here.
Okay.
You can take
But,
this.
okay, but I'm a bit worried about time.
Are we doing all right? Certainly.
Okay.
We'll wrap it up.
Okay. So let us celebrate the butterfly and the butterfly on the wing and the way that we can all relate to beauty.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ruth. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Shakti, Maira, Namita has gone, and Ruth Padel. Thank you very much once again. Coming up next, of Saffron and the Sangha at Charbagh, Cox and Kings. Elsewhere, we have a world of disruption at Front Lawns, Gambits and Game Changers at Mughal Tent, Winston Churchill at Betuk. I resemble everyone but myself at Darbar Hall, and Poetry Hour 7x7 at Samvad.
I'm so excited to welcome the Jaipur Literature Festival to Melbourne. JLF Melbourne brings the greatest literary show on earth to Australia's City of Literature. Join us at Fed Square on February 11 and 12 for the best of Asian and Australian writing and ideas.